Okay, these are the answers to the review sheet that you're going to need for the summative assessment that is coming up on Thursday. Please remember, not only do you need to study the study guide, but you definitely need to go back and look in your notebook at the lessons that were presented in this unit and use that information, especially your conclusions and the lines of learning as you're going through and doing your studying. All right, so let's take a look at the first question here. Remember that you should have check marks. Please check to see, did you follow all three parts of the directions? All right, when you study this image, you see that this is a landslide, and landslides are fast changes to the Earth's surface. So I went down here and I said, landslides are fast changes to the Earth's surface. The soil from the hill quickly covered the highway. This probably happened in seconds. Gravity caused the soil to travel downhill. Landslides often happen when the soil becomes too wet from rainfall. Okay, so in addition to saying if it's a fast or slow change, I did provide at least three pieces of evidence to support my choice. All right, let's go down and look at the second one here. So in this picture, we see there's a house that's toppled into the sea here. So we're looking at this image, once again, we have to decide if this was a fast or slow change. And this is a slow change. This house fell into the sea because of coastal beach erosion. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say it's a slow change. Coastal beach erosion is a slow change. The soil under the house was slowly eroded over time until eventually the house fell in the ocean. Coastal beach erosion is caused by the waves of the ocean moving soil and sand back out to sea. It can be prevented in different ways. Groins and jetties stop currents along the beach from eroding the sand. So prevention can be another piece of evidence you can use in your answers for these questions here. And remember, on the assessment tomorrow, your job is to really write about the two changes that you studied, the two that you are an expert at. Okay, let's take a look at page number 2. All right, number 2 says, look at this picture of a river. Use the letter E to show where erosion would occur, and use the letter D to indicate where deposition would occur. Use arrows to show how soil and sediments would travel in the river. Okay, once again, you definitely need to go back and look at the investigation that we did with the stream tables at the beginning of this unit. And we can see that soil erodes from the riverbanks. So I put an E next to the riverbanks here. And as it's picked up and carried by the river, it then becomes deposited or is moved somewhere else. And I put a D where the soil would be deposited. And if you remember, on the curvy rivers, we said that it was the inside bends of the rivers where most of the erosion was happening. Okay, study this cross-section of a river. This is what a river looks like if you could cut it in half. Draw what it would look like after millions of years. Okay, well, after millions of years of running through this river, what we would find is that the river would erode the banks of the river and the river bed. We would see that this would become more or less like a canyon. Okay, the river would be much further down below the surface of the land. All right, so what I wrote is, over millions of years, the river erodes or takes away soil from the banks of the river and deposits it downstream. As it does this, the river gets deeper and deeper, forming a canyon. And you know, I would really expect to see this word. Okay, oops, I don't know if that's going to work there. Erosion in your answer. I don't think that's going to work. Okay, so I would expect to see the word erosion, and I would expect maybe to see that word deposits in your answer when you're writing about what rivers do. Here's a little video. Let me show you what I mean by this. This is about the Grand Canyon.
The surface of the Earth has so many different forms, shapes, and colors that it's not hard to understand why early scientists had a hard time determining what was responsible for creating and shaping our natural world. In the early 19th century, most European scientists believed that volcanoes and earthquakes were the primary forces that created the landscape around us. From the highest mountains to the deepest valleys, vast open spaces that lie in between. But in 1858, an American geologist named John Newberry changed that thinking after he arrived in the Grand Canyon. He came on a surveying expedition for the U.S. government. At the time, the Grand Canyon didn't even appear on many maps. It was part of a region written off simply as the Great Unknown. Newberry was the first scientist ever to descend down to the canyon's floor. Once he set eyes on the Colorado River and studied the colorful layers of rock that towered above him, he proposed that the river itself had carved the canyon. It was a radical theory for the middle of the 19th century. It suggested that it would have taken millions of years to carve the canyon, which would mean that the Earth had to be much, much older than most people imagined. Today, most scientists agree that Newberry was right about how the canyon was formed. It all began about 6 million years ago, when the Colorado River first began flowing down and out of the Rocky Mountains and started carving a path through the Colorado Plateau.
Okay, so we can see how the Grand Canyon eventually ended up looking like it did there, because over millions of years the river eroded the sides of the canyon, and the river became deeper and deeper down, forming that really cool Grand Canyon. Okay, last page here, let's talk about these fossils. So we have all these fossils that we can find in Missouri today. Crinoids, gastropods, corals, brachiopods, bryozoans, cephalopods, blastoids. All right. And when we look at number 6, it has 3 parts. So 1, 2, 3. I've got a check mark once again for each part. And you'll notice, look at this too. What is the climate like in Missouri? You'll notice that my topic sentence, I'm kind of repeating that question in my answer. That's a great strategy to start your paragraphs when you go to write them on Thursday. Repeat that question in your answer. The climate in Missouri today is warm summers and cold winters. The climate 325 million years ago would have been much different. Missouri must have been covered by a shallow sea. I know this because most of the fossils in Missouri are from the ocean. Corals and pelecypods are ocean organisms. Okay, so there's my evidence to support my claim. I know this because that's a good way to start your evidence statements. All right. So please make any corrections on your review and make sure you're spending time studying your notebook as well for the assessment later tomorrow.